Welcome to the CT Educator Podcast. I am your host, Karina Hogan. I am a registered CT technologist with 20 years of experience and knowledge. I help new CT technologists level up their CT training so that you can become a successful technologist. I'm also a mom and committed to sharing my knowledge and expertise to help you build your confidence, know the CT basics so that you can deliver quality patient care. So let's get into it. Hello and welcome, wonderful technologists. Welcome back to the podcast. So, hope you guys are having an awesome Wednesday. So, I know I'm a little behind on this week's episode. So, kind of a funny story. So, I actually went out on a date on Saturday. Awesome guy. So, usually I don't share too much of my personal life, but this is a really good story before we get into the episode on why this podcast episode is a little late. So I had gone out on a date. It was awesome. He's an awesome guy. So really interested to see where this goes and, just kind of taking my time, considering I'm a mom and everything. So what I noticed is that on Monday when I was at work, I didn't have my debit card or my ID in my wallet. So I was frantic. So when I came home, I was like, well, because I had switched purses. And I said, well, it's probably in the bag that I had, where I switched my purse. So I'm looking in there, can't find it. So I shoot him a text and I said, hey, by any chance, is my other purse, did I leave it at your house? And he says, oh, yeah. You left it there. I forgot to tell you. And I said, well, I need to come and get it because it has my ID and my debit card. So from where I live and where he lives, it's about an hour drive. So I drove, he was happy to see me and everything. And he felt bad. And I was like, you shouldn't feel bad. This was my bad. Usually I don't forget things. And this time I just, probably because I was having such a great time with him. It was a great conversation. And I just, it went over my head. So that is why, and that was kind of a little bit of an emergency because, can't be driving a car without your driver's license. So that is my little story there. So it is unbelievably warmer than usual here in Chicago. It is like 80 something degrees right now in the beginning of October. And usually it is really cool right now. Sometimes there has been one year where it was snowing. So this is really unusual, but hey, we'll take it because I love nice weather. And, I'm a desert girl because I grew up in the desert. I did not grow up in the Midwest. So we will take it. So in today's episode, this is another series that I have created that I thought it was a good one. I have done a couple TikToks on this, and I know I'm a little behind on TikTok videos. It's just, motherhood and kids, and work just kind of take the cake sometimes. So in this segment, which I'm going to try to bring this segment, each month, along with the trauma stories, it is CT scan stories. So like I said, I've done a couple TikToks on this, on some interesting stories that have happened in my 20-year career being in CT. So this one story might be a little long on this episode. So this story is a case that I had done probably about 15 years ago. So I was, a tech, still fairly new, probably about 5-6 years in, roughly. And there was this patient who came in through the emergency room. She was having, abdominal pain, vomiting, this and that. We did the CAT scan and it looked like her gallbladder was completely enlarged and bile was spilling out. So she was at the point where she had her gallbladder was about to burst pretty much. I mean, there were so many gallstones. It was so enlarged. It was crazy. So of course she gets scheduled for surgery. She goes immediately. And all of a sudden, she gets discharged home, comes back, and is like super sick. So like super sick. Like my partner and I, we recognized her and she looked awful. And so we scanned her again and we noticed that she had like a lot of fluid and a lot of abscesses in her abdomen and pelvis. So we're like, holy crap. So of course, our interventional radiologist says, hey, we're going to have to do an abscess drain under CT. Okay, no problem. So we went ahead and I believe we placed 2 drains into her. So the recommendation was for her to go back to surgery, and the surgeon saw her. However, this surgeon wasn't somebody who was very pleasant. And typically surgeons are not. Like their bedside manner, most doctors are not great. But if they have terrible bedside manner, sometimes those are the best doctors. However, this wasn't the case for this surgeon. Terrible bedside manner and was a terrible surgeon, unfortunately. So, come to think of it, she is still in the hospital and this patient gets sicker and sicker. And they were doing, consultations with other specialists, and the recommendation was for her to go back to surgery to get cleaned out so this patient can feel better. Well, the surgeon opted, no, she's fine. Antibiotics will clear it. So, needless to say, this patient would come to CT probably either every day or every other day. When everything was all said and done, this poor lady was intubated. She had a bunch of medications running. Her feet were starting to turn black because there was no circulation. She was just, getting multiple abscesses. When everything was said and done, I shit you not, we inserted probably about 3 chest tubes and 9 drains into this patient. Like every time we would rescan her, it would be another drain we were placing. We placed 9 drains into this patient. That is probably more than I've seen in my entire career. Okay. Now, there is another story that I'll probably do on the segment about, the interesting story about a pericardial drain that we did in CT. But that will be another story for another episode, so make sure you stay tuned for that. However, 9 drains, 3 chest tubes, because she just developed so much fluid and so many empyemas in her chest that's where we wanted to go. And the surgeon refused to take her back to surgery to get her cleaned out so she can be on the road to recovery and get out of the hospital. Needless to say, she was in the ICU for a very long time. I want to say she was up there for at least 4 or 5 months. And the backstory is that the patient had just retired. Her husband was retired. She had just retired, and they were getting ready to travel the world because their children were grown, their children were married off. That was the plan until she got sick. And it was such a heartbreaking story because they ended up tracheing her, and little by little, they started removing the drains because there was another specialist that intervened and said, no, we're doing this. And there was another surgeon that was consulted, and they actually took her back to surgery, cleaned her out. They got her on the proper antibiotics, and they went ahead and made sure that this patient was on the road to recovery. So finally, we got the word she got discharged to rehab. We were so excited, even though we missed her, but we were excited that she was at least leaving the hospital. And I'll tell you, this patient was able to leave rehab. Unfortunately, she did lose one of her legs because of poor circulation, not getting up, and not getting the proper care that she really needed. But I'll tell you, she was able to leave that hospital alive. And I know for most of you listening, when it comes to these cases in CT, sometimes patients don't leave at all, and it's something that's gut-wrenching. So 4 months later, I am working. It's a crazy day in CT, and it's just, one case after the other, we're doing multiple chest tubes, we're doing this, we're doing that. The ER is blown up, every ICU wants to come downstairs. So I get this call from the front desk and they said, hey, there's a patient that is requesting to see you. And I said, okay. I'm thinking, holy shit, did I get in trouble? And that's the first thing that thinks of our mind, like they're going to complain to somebody and say, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't take care of me. Those are the things as technologists we think about and thinking that something is wrong. And I said, okay. And so when the front desk had said her name, it didn't register with me at first. Well, I come out of CT, I go to the front desk, and immediately I recognize the patient. I recognized her. Like she was like, her face was like imprinted into my brain. And I just stopped and I froze. And the husband was like so appreciative. And the one thing that she told me, she says, I just wanted to come because I am suing that surgeon. I just came to get all my records, but I wanted to come and personally thank you for saving my life. It was one of those things that in that moment, as healthcare workers, and I'm getting emotional even telling this story, that we have that off switch when it comes to emotions, because we cannot show emotion because patients die if you do. However, I couldn't control myself that day. And when she said that, I immediately, like the tears were rolling down my face, and I immediately hugged this patient. Her husband hugged me and said, thank you for saving my wife. You guys did an amazing job. Thank you for saving my wife and giving her back to me. So it is one of those stories that I will forever remember. And it is emotional for me to tell it because it's one of those stories that if there could have been some proper care with the surgeon, this lady's outcome would have been a lot better and she wouldn't have gotten as sick as she did. And it's one of those CT scan stories that I remember, and I actually tell some of my students and some of the new techs that I do train that it's one of those things that makes you think. The patients don't remember, they remember how you make them feel, okay? They don't necessarily remember everything that they tell you, they remember how you make them feel. And I know we made her feel comfortable. We told her, we're going to get this done. You're going to feel better. We did everything we could as far as to get this patient back to, where she needed to be, back to getting well, back to, her husband and her family. And just to have her and listen to that and say, thank you for saving my life. And I walked out of this hospital. She goes, I may have one less leg. She goes, but I walked out of here and I cannot thank you enough for it. It is one of those stories that it is so near and dear to my heart. And I'm pretty sure you guys out there have maybe a similar story like this. Let me know, because I always like to hear stories like that. Drop me an email. Come over to Instagram and let's chat about it. So needless to say, she did go ahead and bring up a lawsuit with the surgeon. I don't know too much on that case as far as what happened afterwards, but I think they did settle and she did, get the majority of her hospital bills paid. And, she did get some kind of retribution, for, the care that she didn't get. So it's one of the most memorable stories that I have as a CT tech. And I think from that day on, that kind of shaped what kind of technologist I really wanted to be and how I wanted to help people and to, show other techs how what we do is super important and that we do matter. And we do matter in radiology as a whole in every department, because we're the ones that, are seeing what's going on with the patient and physicians and, surgeons and things like that, they rely on our modality to see what they need to see to treat the patients. So, this was a good episode. I'm a little emotional about it now that I'm telling the story, because I haven't told the story in a very long time. And it's one of the most memorable good stories that I have, because I do have some bad ones. We all do. So hope you got a good takeaway on this. So just want to let you guys know that if you need CEs, I do have an awesome 101 course through Rad CEU providers. So make sure you check that out. You'll get 4 CEU credits. Good for, your biennium stuff. So I teach that course personally. I will drop the links of everything I'm going to talk about in the show notes so you guys know exactly where to find it. And then I do have a course on Udemy where it's like a CT basics and concepts. I'm getting ready to add more courses. There's going to be a course on cardiac 101. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you check that out. And then I do have an awesome ebook if you're into that, as far as getting like a one-on-one basic starter, just to kind of navigate some things in CT if you're brand new. And then I have an awesome PDF where it's some common CT exams and protocols, where I put together some of the common stuff that we do, where your start and end time is, where you should start your box, where you should end your box as far as your lines, and just, window levels, incrementations, things like that, more on the technical side. I am going to get some more stuff together, so please be patient, because, I am a mom, but I'm always trying to give you educational stuff so that you can learn and be the best technologist you can be. So, hope you enjoyed this episode. I will drop all those links. Shoot me an email, send me a DM on Instagram. Let's chat. I always love to chat with new people, know everything, know where you're struggling. Just give me all the 411, okay? So, hope you guys have an awesome week, and we will chat next week. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you would like to share your CT experience, have an interesting story to share, or need help in your CT training, please email me your questions at contact@thecteducator.com. Come on over to Instagram @thecteducator. My DMs are always open, so let's chat. Thank you for joining me on this podcast, and happy scanning.